Walker, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about the economic impact of the Carrollton Greenbelt. So before we jump into things, I want to clear up some definitions for you guys. By definition, a greenbelt is actually more of an area of undeveloped land that has strict building restrictions, more of like a national park or something along those lines, whereas a greenway is going to be a linear corridor of open space along railways or man-made features. The Carrollton Greenbelt in particular is defined as an 18-mile shared use path for pedestrians and non-motorized users. So while the Carrollton Greenbelt is a greenbelt by name, it's more of a greenway by definition. And in case that wasn't clear enough, here's a picture of our beautiful Carrollton Greenbelt. So this basically circumferences the city of Carrollton in 18 miles. So as you guys know, probably would agree, we're in the area of sustainability like Emily was talking about, whether that's social, economic, environmental sustainability. Corporations, governments, and cities alike are all trying to be sustainable in some way or another. And with the Carrollton Greenbelt, what we have is a project that was meant specifically for social sustainability that has turned out to have economic impacts as well. The Greenbelt is interesting because it was funded privately instead of publicly by the government. In most of the literature and past Greenway initiatives, what you have is a project that is meant to maybe inflate a dilapidated economy. It's brought in by the government and paid for by the government. But with the Carrollton Greenbelt, you have something that is meant specifically for the community and funded privately. So what I wanted to do was measure one of the economic impacts based on fair market housing sales that are within the city limits of Carrollton from 2014 to 2016. So like I was saying, there's been some past literature. Lindsay, Mann, Payton, and Dickinson examined the effects of urban greenways in Indianapolis, Indiana, and what they find is a significant negative relationship, meaning that as the house gets further and further away from the greenway, the price decreases. Yes, sorry. And I found it interesting that they note that the hedonic approach doesn't capture benefits experienced by people who do not live within proximity of the trail. This is interesting to me because recently the Noonan Times, Noonan being a city that's located about 45 minutes away from Carrollton, published an article talking about how residents of Noonan travel 45 minutes just to come use the Carrollton Greenbelt. And obviously any kind of social impact or economic impact would not be measured in housing sales in Carrollton by these people that are traveling 45 minutes to come use this amenity. Campbell Monroe, they estimate the effects of a trail in North Carolina, and they also find this same significant negative relationship. But they note that time may need to elapse before the total effects can be measured, which is interesting to note as well because the Carrollton Greenbelt is such a new construction. And this last research right here, Conway, Lee, Walsh, Kale, and Jarrett, they also find the same significant negative relationship. So, we got our data from the Carroll County Tax Assessor's Office. We had all home sales within the city limits from 2014 to 2016. And I limited that down to just fair market sales. I had 750 observations that were over $10,000. I used geographic information systems to also measure these distances that would be considered possibly amenity values that had been considered amenity values in previous literature. We have the University of West Georgia, downtown Adamson Square, which is like a shopping, entertainment, and restaurant district in Carrollton, Tanner Medical Center, which is the hospital, Carrollton City Schools, and the nearest trailhead. And a trailhead, in case you were wondering, is a place for public parking. There's public restrooms, maybe water fountains, and also bike rentals available at the trailhead. And I found it interesting that the maximum distance to any one of the trailheads from the houses that I observed was only 2.4 miles, which is a small number in my opinion, so they're all pretty close. There was also obviously descriptive variables for the homes, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, heated square feet, and such. And the mean sale price for my observed houses was $169,548.91. So this is an image of the GIS map that I used. We use Maptitude, and this outline right here in blue is the Carrollton Greenbelt. All of these black dots right here are your individual home sales, and these little red dudes, these are the trailheads. So if you were wondering, I've had the question before, why use the trailhead and not just distance to the trail? Well, like I said, the trailhead has all of these individual amenities to itself. And on top of that, you run into the issue if this is my house and the trailhead's or the green belt's over here, but my neighbor is right here, I would have to trespass on their property to get to the green belt. Also, you might have the same situation where if this is my house, there might be a highway in between me and the green belt. Also, with some neighborhoods, like Sunset Hills in particular, there's about a mile-long stretch of where their house is in the neighborhood back up to the green belt, but they put up a huge wall because they didn't want, traffic along the back side of those houses. And so people that literally live like 10 feet away from the green belt had this huge wall in between them and the green belt, so they would have to use the trailhead to get access. So I use ordinary least squares to estimate my model, with my dependent variable being sales price, and my independent variables being those descriptive variables of the house, the distance variables, the year sold, monthly dummy variable to trend out any seasonality, and an interaction term. I hypothesized that all of my descriptive home variables will be positive and significant, while my distance variables will be negative and significant. And without further ado, these are my results. Interestingly, distance to city schools and distance to Adamson Square were significant but positive, which is not what I expected to observe. But like I hypothesized, distance to the trailhead is negative and significant at the 5% level. My R squared is 0.72, so a pretty decent fit. Could be better. These graphs up here kind of give a visual image to deter against any heteroscedasticity that may be in the model. And this right here shows that it does follow the normal distribution. So while I did see the results that I was looking for, this model does have a few problems. There's potential for endogeneity in this model, which basically means that the individual trailheads could have been strategically placed near areas of housing that were already inflating. Also, this model cannot assume causation, but one thing I hope to do in the future is to create a difference in difference model. And basically what that means is if I'm able to get some older sales data, maybe a few years down the road, get some newer sales data, look at the actual difference in one home before the building of the greenbelt and after the building of the greenbelt as well, to actually measure if there's been a change for that one particular home. That's all I have for you guys.